Welcome back to Page to Picture, the podcast where books come to life on screen and in conversation. I am your host, Kim.
And I'm Tiff, and today's Art Corner features The Snow Trillium by Melissa Meyers, a powerful intertwined story of love, loss, and hope set against a wintry Midwest backdrop.
Yes, this woman's fiction debut weaves together three distinct lives. Jillian, a newlywed facing devastating loss, Danielle, a labor and delivery nurse confronting her past, and Margot, a young woman from 1917 whose century-old journal surfaces in Jillian's historic home.
Yes, grounded in real emotional stakes, premature labor, grief, career pressure, hope symbolized by the snow trillium flower. This novel spans generations and reminds us of resilience and connection. The story was amazing.
I know, it made me very emotional. I cried
Such
a
a
lot.
beautiful story. I was like, oh my God. Great. We'll talk more about it.
Yes. So please join us in welcoming Melissa Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show. Say hello to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here today.
Okay, so let's just jump right in because I have so many questions. Let's start with your origin story. So we believe every author has their origin story, and we want to know what yours is. Like, what drew you to writing in general, and then going into writing your story, The Snow Trillium?
Yeah. So I was thinking about that question, and actually, as a child, I was really, really lucky to live across the street from a library. And so my writing, I think, really came out of the fact that I've been a lifelong reader for years and years and years. Elementary and high school education really didn't explore creative writing. And I always wish that I had come to writing earlier, to be honest, because I didn't start writing seriously until my mid 30s, which I just think like I wasted all that time. I could have been writing for
No,
some
it's never too late. It's never too late.
But I think also, though, because I had spent years just loving to read, that I had a natural instinct of story that I was able to, once I began to creatively write, just deep dive into. And so, actually, in my mid 30s, I'd had all these life experiences. I was really blessed for about 10 years to be able to live outside the United States. I and my
Wow.
husband worked for NGO, non-government organization in Afghanistan for 10 years, helping with the rebuild Afghanistan
Wow.
efforts. And once you have traveled or live outside your own country, you start to kind of just get a different perspective of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, all those voices that silence you, all those voices that have told you all these years that like, you can't do this, you're not important enough, or they kind of get silenced because you're outside of your culture. That kind of makes you
Yeah.
feel small or makes you feel like somebody who shouldn't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I kind of hit my mid 30s and I had all these experiences and I thought, just need to start kind of writing some of them down. It was always a person who journaled, but then I started to get some opportunities to write for some blogs about my experiences. And then when we moved back to Minnesota, the United States, I wrote for Rochester Mom's blog and was able to process my journey as a mom. And then that kind of just snowballed into the fact that I really actually felt a deep connection with writing and telling my stories. And this book in particular is my first like full length novel, that
Yeah.
I've written. And when we moved back, I'm a nurse, a registered nurse by profession. And so then I started working in a NICU. And about 5 years after working in a NICU, I joined the baby resuscitation team. And
Mm,
so then we stabilized premature infants, which is, a big focus of this book. And some of it's not a particular patient story, because of patient confidentiality
yeah, yeah,
reasons, but
yeah.
it's a story of different experiences that I've had as a nurse. But
Oh
I
my
wanted to
gosh.
explore the two perspectives. So one from the nurse perspective, but then also
Yes.
from the who actually went through the infant loss. It seemed a little
My
bit selfish
gosh.
just to take it from the nurse's perspective. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I have the dual perspectives in
I
the book.
I really love the dual perspective, and I love when you're first reading it and you're getting the background of both the ladies, you know what I mean? And you're just as you're reading it, you're like, "Oh my God," it's so emotional. Both Tiff and I are moms, and it's reading it, I feel like as a mom reading it, it was so emotional. I remember just, like, crying my eyes out, and I was like, "Oh my," and then my husband was like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "It's this book." I was like, "You won't understand." I was like, "I'm sorry." But it's such a good it's such a very good book. So this is your debut novel?
It is. I have a well, so I have a nonfiction book that I wrote about my stories from
Mhm.
Afghanistan, which is just a really like short series of perspectives. And then I wrote a very short fiction novel about my children, kind of a story for them. But this is my first like full fiction
Wow.
book that so yes, but
It's
Wow.
beautiful. It's so good. So congratulations. It's a very, very good book, definitely.
Really well. And the
thank
story,
you.
like, so, like, learning about the two characters, I think it's Jillian. Is that how you say it? I can never figure out how to
Is
say
it
her name.
Jolene or Jillian? I say Jillian.
I called her Jill.
Jillian.
Jolene.
Jillian.
Okay,
Okay.
Jolene.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
okay, I'm a fan, like I've written fantasy, and those names are a lot harder than these ones. So how with these two characters, you used a lot of your experience to kind of shape them. Was there anything else that you used outside of your experience, in the medical field that you used to help shape these characters?
yeah, it's a regional novel too. It's about Minnesota, and so I think, like I said, when I had moved away and spent, those years away from Minnesota and then moving
Mhm.
back, you just notice a lot of things that you didn't appreciate. I grew up here. I grew up in Minnesota, but I didn't appreciate the beauty of it, and so a lot of it was that. And then I wanted it to be a character driven novel, and so Danielle is a new nurse because, as we all know, there's a nursing shortage right now. And a lot of nurses that in the past are being pushed into experiences that they would have had a lot of maturity before they would have had to deal with. But now, because of the shortage of nurses, we're seeing a lot of people just having to take on things that they wouldn't have in the past. And so that was part of the exploration of it. So, and then Margot was the historic character that just kind of popped up. She wasn't planned from the beginning, but when Jillian moved into her historic home that they bought, she wanted to tell her story.
How did the idea of weaving, like, the historical thread, the Journal of Margot, like, come to you? So, like, what does her story bring to this novel? Like, where did that come from? It was such an interesting twist, and I was like, "I love this. I love hearing this other story."
Well, so it came from the fact that the Mississippi River has all these little historic river towns that at one time were really thriving when all of like commerce was, shipping things up and down the Mississippi. And it still happens today, but it was really in the 1900s, around
Mhm.
Margot's time where that was at its peak. And so you have these beautiful big homes in these communities. You have these beautiful, just kind of historic buildings that all have not been updated because there's no money anymore to update them. Like they were
Mhm.
built and then just been there from the
They're just
beginning.
there.
And when I wanted to tell a regional novel or story focused on Minnesota, that was part of the history of it. And then with a historical character, I like to read historical novels, but I get tired of them being based in World War II. So to be honest, I just wanted to go back a little bit further.
You're like, "There's other time frames, you guys."
I
Like,
know,
there's
I know.
times.
So then moving back a little bit, which was at the peak really of, like I said, these river towns. And so then it kind of captured it well. It also was used when I thought about Jillian's journey after she loses Sophia.
Mhm.
As a writer, we just can't read as a reader, you can't read chapter and chapter about somebody just being sad. So
Yeah.
Margot's character was a balance to kind of bring out Jillian's emotions, but through a different way. And so her story brings out, the tragedy, but it also helps her kind of process it through it. And as a reader, you can go through that perspective without kind of being in Jillian's head the whole time, you
Yes.
know, and yeah, yeah. So
No, it was I really appreciate it. I was reading it. I went into it blind, which I loved. I was like, let me just read it for what it is. And when Margot's like chapters and introduction came in, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I really enjoyed that aspect. I think it was a great little twist, had something different. than what we normally read, right? There's usually a chapter will just be based off a friend, or it would just most likely be for like Jillian, like a friend base, right? But this is like a whole other person from a different time. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. I love that little like way you did it. So
Yeah, I agree. Um, so for the listeners who haven't read it yet, what is the Snow Trillium about and what can they expect from its structure and tone?
Yeah. So the short kind of blurb, it's the story of love and loss and a 100-year-old secret is kind of what I say in told in alternating storylines or alternating voices. Um, I I wrote it as a finding hope kind of theme, in the end, though I do know it's sad and but a person reading it is going to be taken through an emotional journey. I marketed it as women's fiction, but I actually think it could be emotional fiction
emotional
because
women's fiction.
fiction. But I think you can gain an understanding for people who have gone through miscarriages and losses by reading it. And also that kind of the exploration of emerging adulthood when you start out life, things don't go the way you expected them
Hmm.
to go. Even with Danielle's job, as a nurse, I hear a lot working in the NICU, oh, this is my dream job, and I always kind of cringe because any dream job is going to have an element that you're going to be disappointed in,
Yeah,
and that's just but it can be very difficult when you're younger to be able to like get through that and know that you're going to be okay, even if everything is not. And so that in the end, like finding hope was the purpose of this through difficult times.
I love that so much. I honestly recommend it to our two cousins. So our entire family, besides me and Tiff, essentially, our entire family are in the medical field. They're either nurses or whatever, anything in the medical field. And then we have two cousins who are currently going through their baby journey. And it's been a tough for them, for both of them. And I reading this, I could not help think about them. And I think that's what made it so emotional because we're like in it with them, and it's like very heavy and emotional time for all of us. So I was like recommending it to them, but I was like, but don't hate me because you guys are probably gonna be like super emotional and cry about it. But like I think they would actually enjoy this story and this book. So yeah, I definitely recommend it for people. So the novel handles some deeply emotional moments like Jillian's premature labor, Margot's wartime separation. I mean, was there a scene that was particularly challenging for you to write, or unexpectedly like healing to write, like a really difficult scene and a really like therapeutic scene? I mean, there's a lot in this book, so I'm really curious.
Yeah. So we'll just circle back to the positive for a minute. So, like the Danielle chapters as a nurse were just really easy for me to write.
Yeah, I
And it
bet.
was really fun to, so nice to, even though like I've been a nurse for 20 years. So it's been a long time since I've been that new nurse, but I mentor a lot of new nurses, and so it was just nice to kind of explore that. And I like to say, like, I'm not Danielle, there's a lot of different characteristics, but I still found her chapters really fun to write and enjoyable. The chapter, of course, that was really the hardest. I have two chapters that were really hard for me to get through, and I had to just like make myself sit down and finish them. And
Oh,
then I avoided even editing them because they were, very deeply
you're like, I don't
personal
want to
with.
go back.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And that was, the chapter where, Jillian loses Sophia
Hmm.
and just processing that from by that time you are, your character, you've gotten into their heads enough, where you feel their emotions quite deeply. And then the other one was when she was going to leave, she
Yeah.
gets in the car and yeah, she's gonna leave. And so and that one was just, yeah, very emotional for me to write, difficult, but they needed to be done.
Yes. How, this is a side question. How long did it take you to write this book?
So it took 3 years, but I have a
Wow.
full-time job.
You're like, let's be real. I'm an adult. I have to work. I got bills to pay.
Well, I'm not writing every day. The nice thing about being a nurse is that you have 12-hour shifts, and so I do less days in a pay period, and so on my days off is when I like to write. But
When you
it did.
write.
It was a very messy book in the beginning, and then I had to really weave it together, um, and figure out how to make it coherent.
Yeah. Wow. She's like 3 years, but I work a full-time job, people. So, like, let's be real about that. What do you hope the message is that your readers can take away from this book?
Yeah. Again, we read for different reasons, you know. Sometimes it's entertainment and sometimes it's just to find ourselves in stories. And so I think the books that I've been most impacted by my life are the ones I want to write. And that's just to have
Mhm.
empathy for people's situations. And so I really feel like even if you have never experienced, premature infant loss, I don't even know if this is a good book if you have, if you haven't worked through your feelings, so I do
Yeah.
have a trigger warning at the beginning of it.
Yes.
Yes, and that's it's a very sensitive topic, and I want it to be very sensitive to people that have experiences those losses in their lives. But I do feel like in the end, I intentionally left the ending of the novel to not be kind of there's a lot of unanswered questions, like,
Yeah.
do Matt and Jeline ever have a baby? Do they ever, and I intentionally left that because that's how life is. We don't know
Yes.
the ending of it. And I feel like I want to leave readers with not just a sense of grief, from reading this novel, but a sense that there is hope, that we can still, the sun comes up, still, and that kind of drawing from nature and the things around you that bring you beauty in your lives too when you're going through difficult times.
Yeah. No, I feel like Tiff and I, we haven't been through anything like this, but like I mentioned earlier, we do have people close to us in our family that have, and I feel, and when you haven't really gone through it, it's kind of hard. Like, what do you say? What do you do when they're going through stuff like that? And you're just, it's hard on that aspect. So I feel like I don't know for Tiff, I feel like for me reading it, it opened my mind and my heart a little bit more. Not like I feel like I understand a little bit more of what people are going through when they've gone through something like that. So it is very beautifully written. Like I said, I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, this is so good, beautifully written, crying my eyes out. Um, and I like that. 'Cause it's real, right? It happens. People it's happening, to many people, and yes, books we read to escape reality, but sometimes a book that has some like, people can relate to, and there is a reality, a connection is also a good read as well. So I really enjoyed it. What's me? I was like, "Who's next asking?" Have readers shared any feedback that really stuck with you? So, something that surprised you or moved you? Have you read any reviews, or has anybody, like, personally reached out to you about your book that really just, like, touched your
Yeah.
heart?
I've had several NICU nurses that I don't know, from different states that have reached out to me and just said, "Thank you for writing this book. I really felt like you understood nurses, in it." And that was impactful. And, the things that they talked about, just the fact that, like I had good mentorship for the nurse in the book and things like that. I didn't actually, when I was writing it, didn't think about too deeply, which I appreciated. Also, just the fact that, once you're writing a book, you just go back to these chapters so many times, you can kind of lose the feeling of it.
Mhm.
And so that people have said it's a really easy read. I read it in a day. I read it, quickly. I identified with the characters, too. So I set out wanting to write, more of a character driven novel, but at the end, because I'd been with my characters for so long, I didn't know if I had achieved that.
You're like, "I don't know if that's how it came out, but that's what I wanted to do."
So I do love that feedback. I mean, every author wants to hear, that like I started the book and couldn't put it down, or, because
Yeah.
that something has worked well.
You're like, "I did it. I did what I set out to do," right?
I love it. So given the delicate subject matter, especially with the pregnancy loss and professional burnout, What advice would you offer other writers tackling similarly like heavy emotional themes?
Yeah, yeah. So with advice for other writers, I think again, this book I took that old adage, write what you know, which I don't think you always
Yes.
need to do, but this really worked. For me, I had the privilege of in like 2019, I enrolled in creative writing courses through my community college. And, like I said, I have a full time job, but I try to just keep working at my own kind of improving my writing skills. And
Mhm.
so instead of, doing my job and doing my master's in nurse in creative writing, which I would love to do, but I have children, I have that I need to pay for,
Y
look for the small opportunities that you can, and I think that just really worked for me. In 2019, which is like right before COVID. So all through COVID, it was able to, we're dealing with really hard things as a nurse, actually. But then I
Yes.
had a poetry class and I had these fiction classes that I was studying on online. And it really helped me just do a lot of processing of emotions that way. And again, there's different reasons that people write, but for me, it's been a beautiful thing. And I would just encourage other people who are writers to, to, it's that like find your voice, but also just find what you're passionate about. It'll
Yeah.
come out through your writing.
Ah, I love that advice. So we know you work full time as a nurse, you got a job going on, but what is next for you in your writing journey?
Yeah, when I finally decided to do this book, The Snow Trillium, I decided I'm not a big like series as a writer. I haven't quite gotten on board doing a series yet, but I wanted to do three regional novels that took place along the Mississippi River. And so deep into my second book, which I don't have a title for, but it's more of a historical novel and then rotates through, well, it's both historical, but from the 1912s, 1980s, and tells a story. It's a sister story and it's a generational story, family story that will take
Oh my
place in
god.
Lake City and focuses on a very little known or remembered part of history, which was the pearl button industry. I'm like two-thirds done with this novel about it's two sisters and it takes place in a historic period, which I had said is kind of a little known history, forgotten piece of American history is that in the 1900s, we started manufacturing buttons, pearl buttons, out of
Yeah.
clams and mussels that were harvested from the
What?
Mississippi River. And it follows the journey of two sisters whose father was a clammer, but I don't want to give too much away. But anyway, the sisters were daughters of a clammer who were from Norway. And so then it's kind of their immigration story, but it also alternates because I like alternating timelines to the 90s
Yeah.
where the grandniece of one of the sisters is coming to stay with her for the summer. And she hears her story about just, it all takes place during one summer, during what she had to go through. I haven't worked on the marketing of that one too much.
No, I actually love that. I'd be really excited to read that. It
Yeah, I would love
sounds
to read that.
me
I'm a
too.
huge fan of books with sisters in it, and especially books that are like circled around sisters. I don't know if you've read The Nightingale, I think that's what it's called. And it's a historical book about sisters, and it made me cry. And ever since then, I'm like, if it's two sisters, I'm gonna read it because it's just,
Sold. That's
yeah,
the
it's
only
sold. Make it better by adding more sisters, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'll read it. So when you write that, let me know because I would like to read that. I would like to indulge. So just think about me.
she's like, "If I see a trope and it says sisters, sold." She's like, "I don't care about anything else. I will happily read it." Is that kind of like your I feel like a lot of authors have their almost like a signature like style or trope. Is that yours with the historical like a different timeline? Is that what you're finding yours is going to be?
As a writer, I really do enjoy just like alternating perspectives, I think they're fun to read too. And then there's a lot of, like I said, everything's kind of heavy on World War II, but there's a lot of historical moments that we
Mhm.
have forgotten about in the past. And as some of it's, I learned about the pearl buttons and stuff living in this region from my father, and just I've like everybody's forgotten about it, but it was a big chunk of history for about 30 years that people were doing it, but I
Tiff,
have to make it interesting.
we're gonna get a history lesson, a fun way of learning history, I feel like,
Fun
right? Because
way, a
sometimes
fun way,
history
yes.
is if you're not a history, if you don't love history, it could just be like a lot to take in. But if there's like a
Yeah.
fun way to learn about history, like I'm all for it.
And there'll be a midwife in it because, of course, everybody had babies at different times, and
Yes,
so I have to
I
get
love
the
it.
nursing aspect of it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to. And you said so. This would be your second one. Are you planning to do like a third one? Is that what you said? Three
Yeah,
total?
a third one that's a regional novel, at least,
You're like, let me get the second one going first, and then we'll worry about the third one later.
It's so exciting though, and I like that the time, like kind of like the time jump. I like
Hmm.
those kind of books, and I don't really come across them very often, so it's nice to have a book like that. And I don't know, I like it.
Me too.
It's a breath of fresh air.
We recently spoke to an author. Her name is Shannon Cars, and she did a book called The Delay Game. And it's like a small town sports romance is kind of. And I had mentioned because as I'm reading it, there's chapters dedicated to the female main character's grandma. And it's the grandma's point of view of what she went through when she found her first love, like back in the day when like he was going off to war and stuff like that. And I would told her, I was like, I was so thrown off by it, but those are my favorite chapters where it's like a flashback, but it's in the perspective of whoever that character is, right? I was like, this is a really great way to incorporate it versus like the characters. It's better than I feel like it's better than a character saying like, oh, I read this or like my great grandma went through this. It's like their chapters, their stories. I found myself to really enjoy those kind of books. If I'm like surprised that they're in there, I'm just like, this is my book. I love these kind of books now. Okay, so it's time for our segment of fun questions. It is a quick fire segment, this or that. So it's nothing like crazy. But the first one is if the Snow Trillium were turned into a film or TV show, do you know who you would have casted as Margot, Danielle, and Jillian?
that's a hard one.
It really is. It really is.
Oh, let me think. I'm also old. I need movies. Like, I think of that.
For Danielle, Florence Pugh,
I
I
can see
don't
that.
know if you guys, I don't know, I haven't seen it because I'm not into that kind of music, but she was in a music video and she played a nurse. Um,
Mm.
and it was this, I heard about the story of what the nurse, she like went through the loss with the patient or something, and she acted out that whole music video so well. So when I was reading this, I was like, I thought of Florence Pugh. So I don't know if that'll help,
Could
but
think of
I thought
Florence
of that.
Pugh. Yeah, I've thought about Florence Pugh as Danielle or maybe Margot because Florence Pugh does great, like, what is it, Tiff? Like timepiece movies. I think she would do good as Margot. And I think whatever, if she was casted, she's really good at like emotions and like making you feel sad and cry. Like she would be good. She's like, Melissa's like, let's just cast like normal people. How about that?
Yeah,
First time. This is their first time to be filmed, their debut.
It's kind of what I was thinking, but yeah, the undiscovered.
Yes, exactly. Everyone, they have to start somewhere, and this could be their moment.
Yes.
okay, so what's the last book that you read or are currently reading?
Yes. Let's see. I actually just finished Tom Lake by what's her name? Anne Paget.
Hmm.
Oh,
Tom Lake by
Tom
Anne Paget.
Lane.
Yes, Tom Lake, and it's about really the summer that a woman spends. She's an theater actor doing Our Town in at Tom Lake, so it's actually the name of the lake. But she's telling this story to her daughters that are all in their 20s and they've come home during COVID times, and
Mm-hmm.
then one like claim to fame. It was just one summer that she actually was a professional actor, and it was really moving. It takes place in Michigan, and they own a cherry farm. So
Oh my god, wait, I'm looking at it right now. Tip, did you know that Meryl Streep is the audio book
yeah,
for that?
yeah.
Oh, what else?
So
Oh,
I listened to the audio, and I loved this book, but I think part of it was just Meryl Streep was the
I'm sold. I'm sold just on that. I was like, wait, this book looks good. And then it says like Meryl Streep narrates Tom Lake, and it is
yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
Yes, please.
So
And it even says that the author had always pictured Meryl Streep reading the book as she was writing it. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna listen to it. That's actually really
yeah,
cool.
it's a really good story. It's a good summer read, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your all-time favorite movie and TV show? Because we are a podcast that dives into books turned into movies and shows, so we love movies and TV shows. Do you have an all-time favorite that's like your comfort show, comfort movie?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a really obscure film that if you watch it, I think you'll like it. So, but it was like late 90s, I think it came out. So it's an old one, but it's called The Waking of Ned Devine, and it takes place in Ireland. And it's about a
Wait,
whole town that one man in the town of 52 people win the lottery, but he passes away. And so the whole town tries to kind of claim this money together, but they appoint one person to be the Ned Devine who passes away. And so it's kind of they're all like working together to keep it secret from the actual lottery people that pass away.
wait, what is it? It's Walking Ned Devine? Is that what, or Waking Ned
Waking,
Devine?
waking Ned Devine, yeah.
I've never
that
heard
sounds
of
so
this.
familiar.
I've never heard of this movie, but I love the plot. Like
Oh,
I'm
It's a
for
really
it.
fun, quirky kind of film. I mean, I like all kinds of other films, but
Yeah.
if you
You're like, this is
that
my
one in
go-to.
particular. Otherwise, from television, I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan and The Office. So
I love that. It's
we
The
just,
Office is amazing.
yeah,
You could have it on and you like it could just be
yes,
playing
yeah.
in the background and you're not really paying attention, but you could like catch yourself laughing because you're just like, I know what's happening and it's funny and I love it.
yeah, literally. I love that. Okay. Standalone novel or a series, which I think you already gave us an answer for that.
Well, she
I would
doesn't
think
write series, but maybe she reads series. Who knows?
Maybe. You sound right.
read series that end at like book three.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
like after
Nothing
that,
more
I
than three. Nothing more than three.
maybe book four, but any series that are like 10, I'm like, okay, I need to move on.
Oh, those are a lot. That is a lot.
she's like, maybe
Okay.
book 4 if I really am obsessed with it and I need to know what happens, but it needs to stop at book 4. Just end the story there.
Basically.
Okay, so Grumpy meets Sunshine or Enemies to Lovers?
Enemies to lovers. I like
I
the
love everybody chooses Enemies to Lovers. I think we all as a community love it so much.
So good. Baby.
The Grumpy meets Sunshine, don't get me wrong, but I would choose Enemies to Lovers every time.
Second chance romance or friends to lovers?
Uh,
hmm. That's a tough one, actually. I think friends to lovers are nice, kind of like gentle stories, and it's nice to read like the trigger of finally why, what the change
yes.
is. So,
Like what that turning point was between the
yeah.
friends? Like what was it that made you guys
Like,
that
how
is
can you be
good. I'll give
friends
you
for
that.
10 years and not, no, but then, yeah, the turning point's nice.
And then all of a sudden it was just like a small gesture of the
I know.
person talking to you and you're like, huh, okay.
He falls first or she falls first.
He falls first.
Yeah, we love a
Yeah.
he falls first. I mean,
That's the only way I like it. Because like I love it when the girl is so oblivious to
yes.
him just yearning for her. Like I
Mm.
just think of Mr. Darcy all over again. She's like so oblivious to him and he's like, I love you. And she's just like,
She's like, I'm gonna go for a walk.
I'm gonna go walk down. Love it.
Yeah, I love a good he falls first also. I think she falls first, I think is so
It
what
has
is
to
the
be done.
type? Cookie cutter. It's just like base like she falls first. Come on. You know a guy is falling first sometimes, ladies. Like they fall first also. Like it's not always just us.
Absolutely.
Okay, that wraps up today's episode. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your writing journey and this beautiful story, the heartfelt stories behind the Snow Trillium. And we are honestly very excited to read your second book. We are 100% on board. We will keep an eye out for that book. I know Tiff is excited. She loves sisters.
I do. And when it comes out, I'm gonna ask to have you back on because I would love to talk about it. 'Cause this was great. I enjoyed having you here.
Where can our listeners find you on social media and where can they also purchase your book?
Yes, on social media. So on Instagram, Melissa Meyers 17, because there's lots of Melissa Meyers in the world. Same with Threads. I've been loving Threads, so been on there a lot actually. And
Yeah, I
then
feel like
on
Threads is
Facebook,
very underrated. Like people don't really know. It's like awesome in Threads. I love Threads.
it is actually. I'd encourage people to join. So Melissa Myers 17 on Threads, and then Melissa R Myers on Facebook, and then you can purchase the Snow Trillium through Amazon in all formats. It's on KU, it's on Kindle, it's on paperback. But then also, if you want to support your local bookstore, bookshop.org, you can find the Snow Trillium there.
See, I've just learned about bookshop.org from another indie author, and I was like, what is that? And he explained it, and I was like, what? I had no idea. We love that 100%. Definitely recommend. Yes, and we definitely recommend getting Melissa's book, reading it. I mean, enjoy it for what it is, go through the emotions as well. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at TikTok. Instagram, TikTok at official page to picture for book to screen adaptations, behind the scenes content, and more. You can also check out our link tree and our bio for all our shows, guest signups, and merch that we have launched. So, Melissa, thank you so much. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We hope that you had fun or a good time being on our podcast today.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for having me, Tiffany and Kimmy.
Thank you so much. Until next time, friends. Have a great day.